I'm Derek Irene. I've been in the real estate business for over 3 decades. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm always paying attention to real estate trends, industry innovators, and business influencers.
I'm Alan Smith. For over 25 years, I've helped buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. Join us on this podcast. Let's talk about strategies to help you play this real estate game to win.
Join us as we search out the latest trends, hot topics, red flags, and deal breakers in every episode of Market Movers. All right, are we on?
I think we're on.
All right.
How about that?
Welcome to Market Movers podcast number 4. It's already been 4, Alan.
Holy cow. This one's going to be a good one, though.
I can't do 4 things in a row in general.
Well, yes, that's a good point. No, I'm looking forward to today because we don't have an opportunity every time to have a special guest, and I know today we do, and I always look forward to those events. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so our special guest today is Igor Mayster. Igor is, I've known you for a few years now, and you're a hustler, and you have a story that I really just wanted to get down because it's so compelling. So I've known you a few years. We've talked a little bit about your background, but let's just talk about your origin story. Like, how did you get here? It takes more than just, I want to try getting into real estate. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Tell me about your history and what's been going on in your life since you got going.
Got it. Thank you so much, Derek, for having me. So my history, I originally immigrated from Ukraine when I was 8 years old to Tacoma. And from there, as a little boy, I was just working, like I mentioned before, mowing lawns and helping my parents clean offices during nighttime hours. I would come home from school.
At 8 years old?
About 11.
Yeah, okay.
11 years old. So I came here when I was 8. September and October, I turned 9. We lived in apartments for a few months. I would say actually about a year in North Tacoma, and then we moved to a home that we were in, and we got it through Section 8, and we stayed there for probably a good 5-6 years until my parents got on their feet and were able to buy their own first home. And during that process, as a little boy, at 11 years old, I started mowing lawns because I wanted to make my own money, and be able to buy my own things. Since my parents, didn't come from a wealthy family, we couldn't get much things, and so I started mowing lawns, and I would go walk and knock door to door and ask people, hey, is it possible to mow your grass? I would get a lot of rejections, but I would just keep going, and the first summer of when I was 11 years old, the first summer I made about $3,000.
Wow.
Just working in the summertime,
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when I started this, mowing lawns, I didn't have my own lawnmower. I didn't have those things, so I would go ask my neighbor if I can borrow their lawnmower. And that after mowing the grass, I would, pay them to use the lawnmower, kind of like rent it,
Wow,
until I can
that's
actually buy my own. So it was interesting how that worked. But after the summer, I bought my own lawnmower, weed whacker, all of that, and I just started mowing grass. And I would be there. There would be my client every summer, probably till age 15, 16 at that. And then afterwards, I started working at Point Defiance Retirement Home.
Okay.
Yeah, I was serving people. I was and doing a maintenance work around Point Defiance Retirement Home. So I did that for a few years, probably a year and a half, 2 years, and then from there I got into construction. I did construction for a little bit as well, a couple of years. I did siding, framing, finish work. So I learned all the industry in construction, and kind of kept going. And then I found my wife. We started dating. I got married, and I started working in a warehouse, which I worked for 3.5 years in the warehouse.
You told me a little story about the warehouse where there was like a hustle going on inside of that job.
Oh yeah, it was
too, right?
Yeah. I was working 18 hours a day. A lot of the days were 18 hours a day, and it was an order selector, so for organic foods products, and we would not have a set schedule. So the schedule would be when all the orders are picked up, everything's completed, you get to go home.
Okay, so that was the motivation.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a lot of people in the summertime, they would call out. So if you come in, you're not working, 10-hour shift, 12-hour shift. You're working 18 hours. In 2 weeks, I did 183 hours.
Oh, gosh,
And
that's
that was
crazy.
That was in 12 days, 183 hours, and and I did that for about 3.5 years.
How did you, well, you were younger.
Yeah.
How do you, you're already still young. How did you sustain that?
It was hard on my body, honestly. So when I started the industry, working in the warehouse, I weighed about 160 pounds. I dropped to like 140. Like I
Wow.
dropped a lot of weight,
Yeah.
and it's just physical labor. It was really hard,
So we need to get some warehouse work
I was
out.
going to say, are they hiring by any
Oh,
chance?
they're always hiring.
Weight loss program.
I don't know that I could do those hours now, but I'd take the weight loss.
Yeah. So it was a lot, and it really after 3.5 years, I got injured and I got level 2 disability. I got 2 herniated discs in my back, and till this day, it constantly, I can't do extreme exercises. I can't do the things that I would love to do sometimes just because of those injuries, And that's when, I was at 23 years old, I wasn't sure what's going to happen. I'm like, where am I going to go? Where am I going to do? But I always had this passion for real estate. Always wanted to do real estate, but didn't want to go through to schooling to get my license.
Right. Yeah, I was curious.
Right.
I was curious at what point did you think, aha, real estate? Now the injury makes sense, and a lot of people would have been really thrown back by an injury like that. But it doesn't sound like you were. You just said, okay, I need to pivot and I need to move in a different direction. So, but you were always interested in real estate. Does that go
Yeah.
back to your construction days?
Yeah. Going back to my construction, even when I used to mow lawns for people. So some of the homes, they were selling them, so I would mow them and stuff like that. And I always look into homes like it was kind of was like in passion, like I enjoyed looking at homes and always wanted to get into real estate. But a lot of the times, a lot of the agents, they won't tell you a way how to get into real estate.
Sure,
'Cause,
sure.
they-
We don't want the competition.
Exactly.
We don't want this guy. Look how much this guy hustles.
Yeah.
We don't want him getting in this business.
So it's just, and at one point, that point came in life where, I wanted to do it. And my wife is like, just go get your real estate license. And I'm like, well, it's just, I don't enjoy schooling. I don't want to do it, And she's like, well, if you want to do it, you're going to have to go through schooling. So I got my real estate license. And I remember, I got my license, I called a few agents, asked around, hey, what's the best company to go, to start working at? So, and everybody's like, well, just pick a company. And so they would not even give me a suggestion which company to go, So I was like, okay. So I tried Keller Williams, it didn't fit for me. And, I didn't want to do the way they have everything set up. And then I went to John Scott, and I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I wanted to be a solo agent, and I wanted to build my business. And, and I had this passion, this goal, and I'm like, hey, it was in August when I got my license. So it's been 8 years since I've been licensed.
8 years, wow.
8 years.
I think a lot of people, they underestimate how important is the office culture and the office environment. And that really starts at the top and kind of, dictates how the place is going to work. But having a place that you can go every day that you feel is something you look forward to is huge. And it doesn't mean that another business approach is wrong. It just means it just doesn't click for you. And so having the name brand recognition, obviously, is something that we're very proud of and stuff. I'm curious, so you've been in for 8 years. Do you remember your first transaction?
Oh, yeah.
The very first one you did?
Oh, yeah. It just it almost...
Perfectly smooth, right?
Yeah, it feels like yesterday. Well, so the first 3 transactions, I actually got a coach that actually, in John Scott, one of the agents helped me through it, and he kind of showed me. I paid him, I don't really remember. It was like 30-40% for my commission, but he would look over my papers to make sure I did everything properly. It was my, I was like, hey, I just want to make sure I put this offer together properly,
Sure,
and,
sure.
and a lot of the times, my managing broker, she was busy with other things. So I was like, hey, this is perfect because it's going to help me. And I was like, it's not about making, the most commission from the beginning. It's learning the industry, learning the game, how it works, how the papers work, and all of that. So he helped me through that process. But it was just one of my clients from warehouse that I ended up selling a house. It was her first home, and she was excited. It was in Puyallup, Graham area, and we sold it to her. She was really happy, and I was like, I can't believe it. It took me like 8 months, and I did my first sale.
So 8 months you're in the office?
8 months took my first sale, and then and my goal was like, hey, I'll do, I don't remember exactly. I believe I said like 18 transactions before the end of the year. So that didn't happen,
Yeah. But you weren't discouraged.
I wasn't discouraged. Yeah, I was like, it's all right, but I kind of learned the industry. So during those 8 months, I was learning different areas and how much homes they sell for, and how the homes they're selling, like the flip properties, like how do people calculate the numbers on them? How much money can you make? So for me, it helps because I work in the construction industry.
Right.
So I kind of can figure out how much the cost will be to rehab a property, So I was learning that, and then learning about land, how I can sell land to builders so they can develop it and, and afterwards sell the house.
Right. So you're 8 months, you do your first deal, then what's it look like after that? You still have a coach?
I still had a coach for the next 2 transactions, and afterwards, so my first year I did, starting that January till the end of the year, I did about 18 transactions.
Oh, wow. So you started off a little slow, but then they started going.
Yeah. So I learned the industry, so I got 18. And then the year, and I was still working real estate part-time. So I was still working full-time, trying to provide for my family and, do things for, my uncle owns a store. It's like a grocery store, and I would help him around and do things there so I can still pay for some of the bills and things like that, But the moment I did those 18 transactions, I said, okay, if I can do 18 and I'm working part-time in real estate and part-time at my other job, then what if I do full in real estate? So the next year I went full in, I did 36 transactions.
So you double.
Yeah.
Which has sort of been our rule of thumb over the years. It's like after your first year, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to double your business generally. But unfortunately, that doesn't continue on year after year.
But what I'm also picking up on is this theme of hard work. And that's sometimes in our industry, there's a double-edged sword. We get a little complacent because all of a sudden we have some success and it seems like, okay, now we can coast. But it doesn't seem like you're in the coasting mode very much. You're still out hustling all the time.
No, I enjoy the hustle. Yeah. Honestly, I enjoy it. Sometimes my wife tells me I need to take a break. I'm working too much, but I enjoy real estate. I enjoy helping people, and the clients is just, it's my thing, But I just kept going, So I did 36 my first year full year in real estate. My second year full year I did 56 transactions.
Wow.
And then from there I did 70 something and 73 or 74 the following year. And now roughly I stay between 55 and 70 year after year, and just kind of keep going.
So you've been very consistent then.
Yeah.
So what, if you look back, what do you contribute a large part of your success to? Are there certain things that you've been able to figure out over time that, you think are contributing to that level of success?
Yeah, I think it's just hard work, dedication. I feel like growing up in a family that, immigrated here, didn't have a lot of things that and you want to do better for your kids, for your family, and I, my wife understands, that I want to do better for the family, and she allows me to work so much. Because some wives, they're like, hey, after 5, you got to be home. This is it.
Sure.
Like turn off your phone.
Yep.
But real estate you never can turn off your phone. No. You work till 11, 12, wake up at 6. I had clients call me 2:00 in the morning. It's just this is the real estate industry.
Sure.
You really have to enjoy it to make it work. And a lot of the times, people get discouraged the first year, 2 years because it's slow. You have to build your brand, and it's all a lot of the business is based off referrals. It's what kind of value do you bring to your clients? You know, if they see value, they're going to refer you to their friends, family. You know, if you're just there to get make a quick dollar or whatever, you know, and then, you know, say, hey, you know, call me when you're ready to sell again. This is not the industry for you, because it's all based off relationships and making sure you're taking care of the client. You know?
People can pick up on that. We call it commission breath.
Yeah.
You can smell it a mile away. You know,
Yeah.
they're into it because they know they're going to make some money off me, and that's about it. And I think people are very intuitive about that. So,
Oh, absolutely. You know, and do you have systems in place? Because it doesn't seem like you have assistants or a team or any of that. You're
we
doing
should probably
all of-
clarify that, because
Yeah,
when
this
you
is
hear these
different.
numbers, it's very easy to see people that say, you know, we do this, I do this much business, and you realize it's because they have 4 listing agents and 6 showing brokers. You know, so they're talking about their team, but you're just out there flying on your own, right?
Yep, I do it all. I'm the assistant, I'm the showing agent, I'm the listing agent. I go out there, open the houses. I just enjoy the whole process of it, and I want to provide high quality service. And for me, I feel like a lot of the times if you try to build a business or hire somebody, they're just working for you, so they don't provide the same quality of service, you know?
Right.
And sometimes it works out, but a lot of the times it doesn't. And for me, it's like, hey, I want to be able to go out there and, you know, if my clients are asking me for advice, I can give them the right advice. You know, if my clients call me and I never seen the house, I can't tell them, hey, if this is a great home, if it's worth buying, because I never showed them the house, you know?
Sure.
So that's the thing. And when you're putting papers together, I like to be able to negotiate, you know, on behalf of my clients, instead of somebody's doing all of that for you, you know? Like, yeah,
Right.
I understand you answer the phone calls, but then you're not doing the paperwork, you know, because some of the things can be missed. So for me, it's, I would prefer doing it all by myself.
Sure.
You know?
No,
I
that
think it's a lot easier for me mentally, and, you know, and I don't have to manage anybody, and I don't have to, you know, ask them, hey, what have you been doing all day? Because it's like all those questions I ask myself, what I've been doing all day, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all on me.
Well, sometimes it's easy in this business. We trade effectiveness for efficiency.
Yeah.
We look at ways we can do things faster or quicker without really thinking about, well, is this ultimately better? And so what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that by controlling as much of the process as you can yourself, the end result is better for you, for your client, which
Yeah.
is really the ultimate goal, right?
Yep.
So, which
Yeah.
gets you the future business from referrals and.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried getting agent that helped me probably 3-4 years when I was in the industry, like to show houses and things like that, and I would, you know, pay him for showings and things like that. But my clients, they're like, Igor, it's either you or
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, we're buying you. We're buying you, pal. You come along for the ride, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, they're
yeah.
like, we don't want your showing
Yeah.
agent. We want to be communicating with you. We want you, we want you to be here and tell us about this house, what you think, if we're getting the right deal, if we should be buying it. So, yeah. So from that point, you know, I just said, you know what, I'll just do it myself, and you know, it's going to be high quality, and I'm always there, you know.
You get a much higher level of trust from your
Yeah.
clients that way, which ultimately means each transaction is smoother because the barriers are down. They trust you.
Yeah.
They know you have their best interest in mind, and so it just makes for a more enjoyable transaction too.
Yeah, and I enjoy more because I get to build a relationship with them, you know. So it's not a transaction type of thing, you know. It's like they become a part of the family, you know. Like
Yeah.
I can always call them, they can always rely on me, not just their real estate questions, but, you know, with anything that's going on. Hey, Igor, can you help us here? Hey, you might have answers for this, you know, or, you know, if anything comes up with the house, or if their furnace goes bad, or if, you know, they need a new roof, they know they can call me, and I'll give them the right contact to somebody to call. You know, I'll give a few phone numbers and say, hey, reach out, get a few bids, see what's the best bid for you, and go from there, you know. So
That's great.
That's almost refreshing nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
so many of the business models are so transactional now.
Yes.
No, I'm not knocking that. I mean, it probably works for them, but you know, when you know a good salesperson or a person to help you out in buying or selling, you know it, right? And you don't want to be pawned off on somebody
Right.
else, right?
Right.
You want that person. whoever it is. I want Igor. I hired Igor. I want Igor.
Yeah, I don't want
You
this
know?
other person. Why is this person involved? Why am I talking to this person?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we even get it on the broker side where like all of a sudden somebody else pops up and you engage with so and so on the purchase of a deal. Maybe they're on the other side as the selling broker, and you get a deal together. Then all of a sudden 3 or 4 other people pop up.
Yeah.
And you're like, who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
And they're asking you for stuff, and you're like, oh, I don't even know what's going on now.
Yeah, I think efficiencies are great, but getting back to the nature of what brings you success in this business is all about relationships. It's about how you relate to the people that you're working with and, building that core value so that they do want to work with you for the rest of their lives. Why would they choose anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So that gets missed a lot of times in all the business books that are out there. It's all about, sell, and
Right.
it's all about creating relationships.
So what's your max capacity? How many deals can you handle and still do this on your own?
Yeah, really. How long are you going to stick at 670 something? Come on, man.
Yeah.
You're in a rut. You got to break out of that.
I think I can. I think I can easily handle 70, 80 deals by myself, and it's just I can be in my be a part of my family and take vacations and do my work easily with 80 deals. It's not a problem. It doesn't affect my family whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think it's probably if you go past 80, you might need an
At a certain point,
yeah.
sure.
But for me, I'd rather provide a better quality than more transactions. So I try to stick to that, hey, I want to provide better quality. Maybe if I would have built a team, I could have sold 140 homes, but what is my quality going to be for my clients,
Right,
So for me, I'd rather do less, but then my quality is there. Clients are always happy with me. They can call me and say, hey, you did a good job. We appreciate that. You were always responding on your phone instead of, they call me, they can't get a hold of me, or they get a hold of my assistant,
So you bring an interesting perspective to this conversation because our business right now, so many of these groups are teams, and there's a little bit of a disconnect from the client, which is you're approaching it from the exact opposite. So what are some of your favorite things about this business? Do you have areas that you feel you're naturally drawn to, that you're good at better than others? Or what do you enjoy the most about what you do on a day in, day out basis?
Honestly, I would say I enjoy knowing that my clients got a home they wanted, and I enjoy more of, I work with builders that build homes and stuff like that, so finding that land, finding that deal, and even the way I got to know my first builder, right? So I saw some homes getting built, and I stopped by in the area, and I was like, hey, who the builder is, and they're like, hey, he's not here. So I'm like, okay, I come back, 2-3 days later, and again, he wasn't there, right? And then they say, hey, come back on this day, he's gonna be here. So, and they had the whole crew working and everything. So I was like, I came, brought pizza and all of that, for the crew and all of that, so I can meet the builder and say, hey, I would love to help you if I can find you some land, so, we can do some business together. And so I show up with pizza, all of that, and nobody's there.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, well,
How
that's
was the pizza?
discouraging. Yeah, that's discouraging. And guess what? I'm getting ready to just kind of leave, and there goes the builder. He drives up, and I said, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Igor Mayster. I'm a real estate agent. I would love to help you. And he's like, Igor, thank you so much. And I gave him the pizza. I was like, hey, this is for your guys. And he said, Igor, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But I have an agent. I already work with somebody. And I said, well, give me a chance, just give me a chance. He's like, all right, I'll let you know. So call him again in a month later, probably I followed up with him like, a week later, 2 weeks later, say, hey, how are you? Just checking up if you need help. And, and he's like, no, Igor, not at this time, So I kept following up until he gave me a chance. I
Okay.
probably called him 4 or 5 times until he said, you know what? Here's my email address. If you see something good, send it to me and we'll talk.
He probably thought he was getting rid of you.
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
He's like, okay, give him something. Give him my email address.
So from there, as time goes by, within the last 8 years, I probably did 40, 50 transactions with just one individual.
Wow.
And, and we just built this relationship, I mean, he's not just a builder that I work with. He's a family member. We always, it doesn't matter if somebody calls him and tries to sell his home or tries to sell him anything, he'll call me. He said, Igor, what do you think about this property? Igor, I had somebody reach out, they want to buy this home. Hey, I told them they can call you directly, they can have a conversation with you, but I'm not selling my home directly to them. So he'll never cut me off a commission. He'll always pay me my commission. Doesn't matter if I staged it, didn't stage it, did all the work. But since I brought him the deal, he'll always sell it with me. And even before he buys any deals, he's gonna ask my opinion, what I think, what's the resale gonna be, and things like that.
So for people that are listening to this or watching this, in case you didn't notice, the big takeaway here is pizza.
Yes, exactly.
Pizza, right? Yeah.
I think it's more going out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Because for me, honestly,
exactly. No,
it was like my hands were shaking and all of that, and it's like you're going out of your comfort zone, and I'm like, and it's like you're gonna get rejected at the beginning,
Yep.
and it's okay, but you just have to keep coming back, and I guess that really helped me when I was, a kid that used to mow lawns, because I would get rejected all the time. People would close their door on me, like, we're not interested, leave, and
Yep.
and you're like, okay, next door, so as long as you can take rejections, and even when I got in the industry the first couple months, my own twin sister needed to sell a house. She didn't use me. She used somebody that had more
that
experience than
always
me.
Oh, there you okay. There you go. So that can happen too.
Yeah. Even to the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, Al, we need to get a lawn mowing service training program.
So my big takeaway, in addition to pizza, was that you were actually volunteering to mow lawns. It sounds like you actually showed up and did it. So that's unique in this day and age too. It's just having somebody that follows through with what they say they're going to do.
Well, I would do it year after year. I think I did it for a lot of my clients. I still even have a relationship with them till this day.
Oh, I bet.
So it's like going back, 16 years ago, I still stop by. They still, some of them, unfortunately, some of them passed away. Some of them are still around, but I still stop by and visit them. And they're like, Igor, we get to see your kids now. And you were this age when you came to ask to mow our lawn. It's just like,
that's got to feel great.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's just, and I get a privilege to live in the same kind of neighborhood that I grew up in. And it's amazing because I get to see a lot of people I went to school with and stuff like that. And, I wasn't learning, English coming here when I was 8, 9 years old. I would get a lot of people, kids would make fun of me, in school because they're like, hey, you don't know how to read, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to do that. Well, now I get to run into them, or their parents, and they're like, you used to go to school with my son, and I was like, maybe I did.
Maybe I did. Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember, but it's just, in life, it's okay getting rejected,
Sure.
It's part of life, and you just can't let that get to you, you got to keep going, you have to work hard, and if you want to do better or want to get somewhere, I think it's just hard work and be dedicated, and, having that support from your family, and your wife, and obviously, God been so good to my family all the time, I'm like, how blessed I am, it's beyond measures,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and you're experiencing the benefits of all that hard work too. And I'm kind of picking up on the fact that you didn't really approach this as a hobby.
No.
You just kind
Right.
of said, okay, I'm going to go do this. And you threw your hat over the fence and here I go, right?
Yep.
And then there's a big takeaway from that too. You just have to have, even if you don't know what you're doing, have a little bit of faith and confidence in yourself and just saying, you know what, you have a support network that's supporting you behind the scenes and are all encouraging, go for it, but take it seriously and really try to figure out how you can excel at stuff. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, and I think another big thing that a lot of people get into this industry, they don't learn anything about real estate, right? They not just about the home. Like if you're trying to work with builders or developers, they don't learn the zoning about the certain areas. They don't learn, what's the difference between this area and, a mile from now, what's the resale gonna be. So they don't learn a lot of that, and they try to go and try to sell something, and, the builder looks at them and they're like, how do you expect me to make money? Like there's no
Right.
money to be made on something like that. Or what's the resale gonna be? They don't know the cost of build. You have to know how much does it cost per square foot to build a house.
Sure.
We're talking about spec home or we're talking about custom home. So learning the industry is really important. I think taking 8 months to a year to learn the industry for you to actually be able to bring value to clients, it's really important, you know?
It's important, yeah.
So that first 8 months of your downtime, sorry, Al, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
You spent that doing those things. You're
Yeah.
out there looking, getting to know the market, trying to figure out where your place was in the market. And I think that's a good lesson for new agents that are sort of, out there trying to figure it out. There's so many things you can do that don't involve transactions, right?
Right.
So that's important. So if you were to give advice to a new agent right now, you've seen enough folks come and go, what would that be based on your experience?
I would say don't get discouraged, work hard, learn the industry. Most likely your first transaction will be from somebody that that you already have a relationship. Follow up with your database. It's really important to call your database, check up on them, see how they're doing, because that's mostly where your business is going to come,
You've seen a lot of new brokers come and go in the business now, and what would be some advice that you would have based on your experiences?
So I would say, don't get discouraged, keep calling your database, people, learn the industry, spend the time learning about the industry, not just, hey, I want to sell my first home. It's great. I feel like everybody wants to sell their first home. You're excited, you got your real estate license, but if you don't learn the industry, eventually your client's going to realize that you don't know anything what you're talking about. Like it's really easy for your clients to find out, if you don't actually learn it and be able to explain it or, tell them more about it.
Yeah, I mean, we tell new brokers all the time, the one thing you can overcome and actually do better than most other brokers if you want to is take the time to know the market. And if you really kind of drill down and know the market inside and out, a lot of brokers, they're busy with customers. They don't take the time to stop and go, okay, what's happening all over the place all the time, right? We kind of focus in on my buyer needs a house in Gig Harbor. So for the next month, I might just be focused on Gig Harbor.
Right.
Whereas if you're a new broker, you could focus on everything because you have the time.
Yeah, and plus you have an enthusiasm and you have an interest and a curiosity that a lot of the old grizzled veterans have maybe lost over time. And so I would never tell anybody just because you're new that's not going to work, because that's not true. You can bring a lot to the table, even technology, just the ability to embrace change and say, okay, here's what the new real estate landscape looks like. Let's go for it. I don't know any different.
Yeah.
That can be a big strength too.
Well, and I feel like a lot of agents, when they start out, they don't want to spend the extra time. Like, a lot of agents, they don't want to do the open houses. I did so much open houses the first probably year, 2 years in my industry. I was doing, 3 open houses a day.
Wow.
I was doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was doing open houses, and you get to learn and get to, learn the industry, and nobody's judging you. If you don't know something, I mean, this is where you can learn. You
Sure.
can, and a lot of the agent, a lot of the people that are gonna come to an open house, they're already working with the agent, which is okay, But I would just go a little extra, bring. Buy donuts, and then I would bring,
Pizza.
Not pizza, but I did donuts, did the cookies, did all kinds of stuff from Costco, provide drinks, and, everybody's excited, they're happy, they come through an open house, and, and you just tell them a little bit about the house, and you just get to build a relationship, and eventually maybe they'll call you, say, hey, we're actually interested in looking at some homes, we weren't ready at that point. But I feel like a lot of agents, like, I don't want to go do an open house on a Saturday. I don't want to do an open house on a Sunday. It's my family day, and I get it. That's. I feel like everybody don't want to do it, but the fact is we have to do it and get in front of the people and build yourself, a brand and your name so people get to know who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for those of you that might be real estate brokers out there listening to this, and you're thinking, gosh, 3 hours for an open house, what? He's out doing 3 open houses a day. So, there's a different level of dedication to the craft, if you will. So get some perspective on it, because I always hear people laugh, well, geez, I was there for 4 hours. Okay, well, you worked 4 hours this week, so, you know,
Right.
maybe ramp it up to 5. So,
Right.
but no, that's awesome. So the underlying theme here is hard work, discipline, dedication, and really putting value on the relationship and the client.
Yeah.
Seems to be a huge takeaway.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, and I feel like, you know, I try to, if it's my client's birthday, I try to reach out, say, hey, you know, happy birthday. You know, sometimes they'll try to stop by, drop off a cake. You know, I
Wait a minute, you keep track of all this stuff?
How do you
try
do
to keep
that?
track of
Wow.
that.
You must
all
have a
of that, yeah.
system.
What kind
It
of
must be-
system is
Yeah,
that?
it's all in my head.
Yeah,
That's a good system, right?
I've heard you can put some of those things in your phone.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
actually-
some of them I actually have a lot of my clients' birthdays and stuff like that in my phone.
Sure.
So when their, you know, birthday comes up, it's gonna give me a notification. Hey, you know, it's today is this person's birthday and things like that. But you know, I try to stop by, you know, every Christmas, drop off something for the family, and you know, say, hey, how have you guys been? How's the family? Like make that face-to-face contact instead of just calling them, you know, and say, hey, how you guys been? It's been a couple of years since I sold you a house. I tried to stop by. You just stop by randomly, you know,
Right.
do Popeyes, you know, just randomly stop by. Hey, you know, if they're not home, I'll leave it by the door. They'll text me, hey, Igor, appreciate it. Thank you so much for stopping by, you know. Some of them say, hey, Igor, it's been 8 years and you've been stopping by. Can you just stop stopping by? You know?
Stop.
We feel so bad.
answer
and I'm
is
like,
no, right?
And I'm like, no, I'm still going to stop by, and I'll see you next year. No. But
So-
it's just,
So it sounds like if I'm trying to do business with one of your clients, there's very little chance that's going to happen because you've earned that business and you're now part of their family.
yeah, a lot of the times, you know, like we're all agents, we'll lose a few deals here and there, you know, but it's really rare. And, you know, I had even agents tell me, you know, Igor, your clients are too committed, too dedicated to you. You know, they tried, you know, and I'm like, hey, you know, I build a relationship. For me, it's just not about that commission check, you know,
Right.
because if I take care of the client, you know, and I'm always there for them, you know, they're going to see the value in you, you know, that you're not just there to get that next commission check. You actually care about them genuinely, and, you know, and you want them to do good. And, you know, and I always try to tell my clients, hey, you know, if you have the ability to buy, you know, another home in the next couple of years, you should, you know, because it's one of the best industries. It's, you know, and, you know, investments that you can do for your family, you know, because it's only going up. If you look at the chart, you know, for the last 20 years, 30 years, you know, real estate only been going up. You know, maybe it'll correct itself a little bit, but it's always going to go up. You know,
Sure.
You can't stop inflation. You know, you can't stop none of that. And if you can buy another house and eventually, you know, rent it out for now and maybe, you know, give it to your kid or whatever, you know, it's going to help them so much more in life.
Yeah, and I've never heard anybody look back in time and say, gosh, I wish I hadn't bought that house 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
They just don't say that.
And you
So-
put your money where your mouth is. You have a plan in place for your future that involves real estate.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And you
yeah.
talk about it to people, and I think it's important that people that they trust you and your advice, and you're telling them to buy real estate, and they see you buying real estate. There's a, you know, that lines up, right?
Yeah.
Walking the walk.
Well, I always tell my clients, you know, there won't be this perfect time to buy real estate. You know, the perfect
Yeah.
time was yesterday, you know,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah.
we're always tell that, you know, but you can't really time the market. Is it up? Is it down? But if you buy it for long term, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you don't over leverage yourself. That's the biggest thing that people do. They over leverage. They go buy multiple homes, and then they're all stressed out. They're like, hey, you know, but if you don't over leverage yourself, and as long as you know, you buy, I try to buy a home every 2-3 years. You know, we try to buy one home. You know, every 2-3
Yeah.
years we're buying something. You know, and then I'll put somebody in there. It's not always, I don't look about just cash flow, because a lot of people look
Right.
about cash flow. It's
Yeah.
hard to cash flow in Washington State, you know, but it's more appreciation. If you buy
Yeah.
the right location, it's going to appreciate. I mean, perhaps like if you look back in North Tacoma, right? I grew up in this area. Like when my parents came to North Tacoma in 2001, I would see some homes in North Tacoma sell for, you know, 150,000, 160,000. Same home right now is selling about 700,000. So it's only been 23, 24 years roughly, and you know, it's pretty much tripled than what they used to be, and you know, it's only going up. You know, it might correct
Yeah.
itself a little bit, 10, 15%, but it's overall, it's just, you know, it's just been going up.
Yeah, and that's sage advice that not all of us got the memo in the 90s when we were leveraging everything. And it's funny, I listen to like every once in a while I'll just hop on to like a Bigger Pockets podcast or similar podcasts, and they're all running that play again. They're like, oh, you have to leverage and get into as many properties as you can, and you know, it's the Burr technique. It's a buy, rehab, rent, and refi, and that works to an extent. But the people that do the best, they buy and they hold, right? And so you're way ahead of it by giving folks that advice. And sometimes we have to figure that out the hard way, right? So good advice. And you have a plan in place for yourself too, right?
Yeah, my goal is with the next, have another 4 years, I need to buy another about 4 or 5 homes. Okay. And, some of the properties I buy, I can add, which a lot of the zoning is changing in the whole Washington state, where you can build, add ADU or DADU, or you can bring more value to your property.
Right.
So the goal is, to convert them into 20 doors and, get the cash flow where, you're not just, I don't want to be relying on just real estate because, I enjoy real estate. This is what this is what my passion is, but this is not where I want most of my income to be coming from. I want to be coming from my rental properties, from other things, and just, and do real estate, as I've been doing it as a hobby, because it's more, a full-time thing for me, but I enjoy it. It's like my hobby, it's
right.
It's not,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're not saying it's a hobby, but you're saying, I want to get to the point where I can just do this and it's not the number one driver. I can do it because I love it and I have other streams of revenue.
Correct.
And that's awesome. And that's what we all want, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants. It's our goal.
Yeah, well, and I try to tell that to my clients, like, hey, if you buy this home, let's say, in 20, 30 years, it's going to get paid off, by your tenant, and then it's paid off, and then you get cash flow, $3,000, $4,000, and then it's like potentially you can add a AGU or DADU that can give you another $2,000, $3,000. So now you have $6,000, $7,000 coming from just one property, and that's a good retirement. That's going to help you.
Yeah,
when
and
you get there.
that's the other. I'm glad you brought this up. That's the other part of that. You don't need to have 20 properties.
Yeah, you don't.
You need 3 or 4 that are paid off that can produce, a pretty good revenue. You don't need to be, a mega landlord.
I agree. I don't want to be a mega landlord.
Yeah,
because I hear people like, hey, I have 300 doors and stuff like that. It's too much to manage. Like you said, if you have, a good 5 properties and then you can put 5 ADUs, I mean, that's 10 doors, and if you have them mostly, 50, 70% paid off, you're going to be getting great cash flow. You can enjoy life and you can do whatever you want.
Keep it tidy.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. So, so you've been in business for a while. Do you have like 1 or 2 just transactions or real estate success stories that stick out that you can think of?
I would say I had a few transactions where I was probably 2 years in the industry, and this builder, he ended up filing bankruptcy, right? And so this was a new construction, and the earnest money was released to the builder, and that's how the whole purchase and sale agreement was. And for like 6 months, we're like, hey, what's gonna happen? He filed bankruptcy, and then we see, 12 months later, like what's going on. And then they hired a receivership to finish this project, and my clients still end up getting the home, which was really exciting, because I would ask everybody that's been in an industry 20, 30 years, they're like, Igor, we never saw that happen before. We don't know. We can't really help you, but let us know how it goes. I was like, well, thank you.
So your buyer had an offer on a house. He was a new construction builder, filed for bankruptcy, so the buyer was out.
Yeah, well, he wasn't out. He was still under contract, but we just wasn't sure what's going to happen. Up. Yeah, because his earnest money is tied up. There was a receivership that's taking over the process, and he was a pretty big builder. If he wasn't just an average builder,
Right.
And it was the whole development, and there was like a bunch of homes that were in receivership. So and and you're just calling everybody. There's like 10 different people, you're talking to, and nobody knows what's going on. And it was a big mess,
Right.
but it was exciting because when I was able to give them the key, and they were so happy, and they're like, Igor, thank you so much for sticking through it, and making it happen. I had a few of
Yeah.
those transactions that were like, really tough transactions, just because we had a few where there was clouds on the title,
Right.
and the family members selling, their parents' house, and their parents passed away, and their parents made back in the day, one of those real estate contracts, purchases, where they got a loan from the seller. The seller,
right.
everybody passed away, and now it has to be, has to get posted in the newspaper, and
Oh,
all
yeah,
of that. It
quiet
was,
title action
yeah,
because
so-
they probably didn't do the reconveyance.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with that, and it's like, a year later, and you're like, what's gonna happen? And you're like, hey, and you're not making this huge commission check, and you're like, hey, it's never about the commission check. It's getting to the finish line, and your clients are like, Igor, we appreciate so much that you stick through it and you made it happen.
Yeah, because that's a long process, and you do really have to stick. How long did it take to get that house out of receivership and hand the keys to your client?
I would say I had a few of those, probably anywhere from 8 months to 12 months.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not a short-term fix.
Yeah, it's quite a process,
Yeah.
So, and then, a few transactions where, we were able to negotiate on some properties. It was listed at originally, I believe, 2.4 or 2.5 million. They dropped the price to, I think, 2.2 or 2.3. And my client comes to me and said, Igor, if you can get this to me for 1.9, I'll buy it. And I said, well, that's like 400 grand less, like, how do you want me to do that,
Right.
And
It's good to tell the clients the reality.
yeah. And they're like, well, that's your job.
Not a magician.
Yeah, that's your job, Igor. If you make it happen to 1.9, I'll buy it. So I'll go out there, and I was negotiating back and forth, and they call me and say, Igor, I think we have a deal. 1.9, let's get it signed.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You're like a dog with a bone. Just like
Yeah.
you bringing the pizza over, and you're not leaving with a no.
No,
Right.
I love to negotiate. I like, I like finding, a fair ground for the seller, the buyer. Everybody's happy. At the end of the day, at the end of the, you don't want seller to feel like he got screwed.
Yeah.
You don't want the buyer to feel like, I want my buyer to get a great deal. That's if I work for my buyer, I want you to get a good deal. If I work for my seller, I want you to get the top dollar. It's just what it is. But you don't want people to be pissed off in the middle of a transaction and say, hey, I'm not selling, I'm walking away, and it becomes a mess. But so in this situation, I go back to my client and say, hey, they agreed to 1.9. And he says, okay, well, now I want 1.8.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
And I'm like, well,
don't you love that?
yeah. I'm like, well,
So then what's that conversation
yeah.
like?
I'm like, well, so you just told me 1.9. We were going back and forth. We came to agreement. Then you want 1.8. He's like, I want 1.8. I called him and said, Igor, we're not going to take 1.8. So he decided to kind of wait for a week. And then he calls, he's like, okay, I'm ready to sign the contract. So we called them, and they say, hey, we have somebody else coming out of the state, from different state. They're, some doctor, I believe from New York or something. And he's going to come check out the place. Sorry, we're not going to sell it to you right now.
Our price just went up to 2.0.
Yeah. So now you're sitting, and you're like, man, we should have signed it. We didn't sign it. Then those people came, they end up not buying, they left, and then we end up getting under contract. So it was exciting, and I remember, sitting and looking at my check, and I was like, this is the most I ever made. It was more than I even made in 1 year working in the warehouse. I was like, this is unbelievable. This is like, really, like I used to work my whole year, 18 hours a day, almost every day, to be able to provide for my family, right? And you're like, is it actually real?
Yeah.
You're sitting and it's just like, so, but it was exciting, it was, and from, like I said, it's just, and getting everybody together, everybody was happy. Everybody was, the guy was happy that he sold his house. My clients were excited. They got a great deal. I think the house probably worth about $5 million now. It's a beautiful home.
Right.
3 acres, on the
That's
lake, it's all private both launch, both house. I mean, everything, you know. So almost 7,000 square feet. It's amazing. So
That's incredible. Well, you're just such a great success story, and I think it's good for agents, all agents, to hear like about not only the success but the obstacles that you had in the way. It wasn't all just handed to you on a silver platter.
no, I feel there is always obstacles every day, you know, even, you know,
Yeah.
8 years into it, you know, there's things always going to come up, you know, like every transaction is different. You're working with different buyers, you're working with different sellers, they have different expectations, you know.
Right.
So, but as long as you're willing to put the energy and time for it, you can make it happen, you know. I mean, I ran into situations before where my seller signed the contract and now he's like, I don't want to sell anymore. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, I educated you before signing this contract that you can't back out and stuff like that, you know. And it's just like an emotional thing. It's not really that they don't want to sell. They don't know where they're going, what they're going to be doing.
Right.
You know, it's not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not that they're like, hey, you know, we're not interested. They still want to sell their home. It's just what's going to happen. You know, it's that fear, what's going to happen.
Reality hits,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It gets real.
Yeah, like you have to pack
Yeah.
your things. You got to get going,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's just, you
No,
know.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's the biggest, you know, biggest thing that they're going to do in life. You know, it's like, you know, this is a home that they live, you know, raise their kids. And a lot of the times, you know, that's a lot of the people will, you know, only buy one home or two homes a year in their lifetime, you know, so it's a big
Right.
decision, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important. You know, I had clients where I'll go out there and show 70, 80 homes until I show them until they bought one house, you know, and it's just almost every weekend I'm out there showing houses and I'm like, you know, they're like, Igor, are you ever going to get tired of us? You know, like, are you going to just say, you know what, you know, you're done?
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's fine. I understand. You know, you want to get the right house that works for you guys, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times the challenges are, you know, they look at this house, they can't make a decision. And it was like, I would say 2018, 2019. But the problem is, you know, a month later, the prices are up by, you know, 15,
Yeah.
20 grand. And now they're frustrated because they're like, well, you know, a month ago we were able to buy the house. Now we can't, you know, and the
Right.
prices just kept going up and keep going
That
up.
was a
And
crazy time.
yeah.
wasn't it?
And I mean, it's still happening, you know,
Yeah.
we're still getting multiple offers on things, you know, even with higher interest rates, you know, it depends on location, right? But it's just, you know, a lot of the times our buyers, they're so emotional about things and they're like, well, a month ago, this house was 20 grand less. And you're like, well, I can't change anything because the market, it just keeps going up, you know, and they're just frustrated. And, you know, so it took them probably within the time we started and until they bought, probably took, you know, 6-8 months to buy, but, you know,
Right.
but the prices probably went up by, you know, 40, 50,000. And it was really hard
Yeah.
for them to look
Hard
at
pill
that.
to swallow,
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just like, and you know, and last thing I want to do is, you know, push on my clients to say just buy this home, and you know,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't want to do that, you know. So it's like if you guys are not ready, if this is not the right one, let's keep looking, you know. And it's just, you know, and you know, for them it just became, you know, after looking at so many homes, they couldn't. Some of the buyers, they know exactly what they want.
Right.
Some buyers, you know, they have to look, you know, at 20, 30 homes to actually realize, okay, I actually don't want this and I want this and this is important for me and that's not important for me. So it's just
Right.
learning, you know, you're not going to get everything in the house. Doesn't matter if
Correct.
you build it, you're still, after you're done building it, Derek, you're going to be sitting out there and saying, I wish they did this
Oh, yeah.
differently.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, you can't have it all, you know, but you
Yeah.
have to just figure out what are the things are you okay with and what are the things it must have, because, you know, this is just what I need in my house, you know?
Yeah, and it pays not to go into anybody else's house or look at Pinterest.
Yeah.
And then you won't be jealous of anything, right?
Exactly.
Right. Let's find something you need. So, you know, here it is, August 2024, and we've had some changes in our industry, and, you know, there's a lot of talk and chatter. And how are you feeling about going forward in this industry, and what are your plans moving forward?
Yeah, I think the industry is going to be great. You know, I get it. All the laws and everything change. It's all about us educating the buyers and the sellers at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, we as agents, we don't educate our clients. You know, in Washington State, you know, a couple of years ago, you didn't have to offer no commission to buyer's agent. You know, sellers never had to do that, in the last couple of years, but they will do it because they understand the seller has to come up with, closing costs. They have to pay for down payment. They have to pay for appraisal. They have to pay for inspection. And a lot of the times they don't have the money. If they're a first-time home buyer, they don't have the money to pay for their agent as well.
Right.
And
Alan's 3-bucket.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like if you educate your seller when they're getting ready to list their home and you explain all of that, most of them they're going to be more than gladly give a commission. They're be like, I totally get it. I understand. I've been in that situation. It's more how you're going to approach the situation.
Right. Talking about it and just putting it all out there and letting people decide what they want to do.
Yeah, and most of the sellers, I think, that really think about it will realize that any compensation they're offering to the buyer side is really coming from all the market equity that the market has built up a head of steam on. And so it's the market itself that's driving that and giving them the ability to do that.
Yep.
And so, it takes some careful thought and figure out what's the best way. At the end of the day, I've got to get to Montana by the end of next month, and so how am I going to make that happen? And that's, sometimes that's what's driving everybody to do the moves they want to move.
Exactly, and what's going to help them to sell their home at the same time. A lot of the times people are like, well, I don't have to offer commission. That's right, you don't have to offer, but do you want your home to sell? Right. How fast do you want your home to sell? Do you want to, like you said, do you want to get going, or do you want to have it on the market 4 or 5 months later and then agent coming in and say, hey, my buyers, they still can't pay me a commission. Would you be willing to pay for my commission or do something? So now you're still obligated, or, if you actually want to sell it, you're not obligated, but you'll be willing to pay for it.
And ultimately, what's in your best interest?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's getting to the next chapter in life is in my best interest.
Yep.
And we tend to forget about all the little bumps in the road 20, 30 years ago. It's where am I at now? And really our goal when we help people put their homes on the market, it's opening the doors to attract as many potential buyers as possible. And when we start restricting that, then that can backfire sometimes. So, come on in. The more that look, the more that maybe put an offer in, and the more offers we have to pick from, the better it works.
And I feel like, even us agents, when we sell our houses, right, we're more than gladly happy to pay the commission. We're not like, hey,
because we know.
It's like, hey, you want 3%? We'll give you 3%. We know what it takes.
I'm offering it. I want to know what. It's a fixed overhead cost for me.
Yeah,
it's like, I know what it is, and there it is, and I want you to sell my house, right?
Exactly.
Well, for me, I know what's been proven to work.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to recast a mold here and go out and gamble.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, a lot of people don't, I feel like a lot of agents just not educating their clients properly, or they go in there and they're like, hey, as long as you pay the listing fee to me, that's all I care about.
Right.
But they don't actually care on, I feel like getting your home sold, or explaining that to you. Hey, like a lot of the times, they can't afford to pay it. They don't have the money to pay it. Even if we put 0 or if we put negotiable or whatever we put in there, at least let's give them the option. If they can't pay for it, we can, do something and help them come up with that money, and I think that's really what's really important, and it's going to be in the seller's best interest.
Ultimately, and I think a lot of people that do this, they get that, they just say, okay, we've got to make this happen, and so.
But I think the communication thing is big, and if I have somebody like you at my kitchen table, and you're able to articulate all of this in a way that I can understand, then I'm probably I'm more likely to hire you, because I also know that during the negotiation process, you can articulate what I need, my needs, and give me the best deal, right? So if you show up at my table and you can't even talk about what's happening inside of your business, how good are you going to be when you're dealing with the opposite side of the deal in negotiating on my best interest? I just don't.
Well, Derek, that's actually, I tell that a lot to my clients, because I have some clients, well, not my clients, but just people call me and say, hey, Igor, can you list my house for 1% or 1.5%?
Exactly, yeah.
And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I'll explain why, right? Hey, this is what I do. This is what I do differently. Hey, if you need to get a hold of me, I'm usually available. Like, I'll call you back within, a few hours. I'll call you back. And a lot of the times, they're like, yeah, but we want this price. And I'm like, well, I can't offer you that price. Well, this agent offers me this price. I'm like, well, let me tell you one thing. If they can negotiate on behalf of them why they worth that, then
Right.
how are they going to be able to get you the top dollar?
That's right.
I'm
That's what
I'm just going to tell you this and just going to leave it with you. And it's for you to decide, if they hear telling you that they're willing to do for 1% or 1.5% and they're, and I'm like, a lot of the times if they're willing to do that, your listing is not a priority. They're not on top of it because they're like, I'm not really making much money. I have all these other fees to pay for. I have, if they're staging the house, if they do marketing or whatever it is. So a lot of times, sellers forget and they feel like, oh, we're making that, 2.5% or 3%, like
Yeah.
with my listings at 3%, I offer staging for the first 2 months. I'll pay the staging myself out of pocket. Right.
Right.
And then, I offer obviously professional pictures, marketing and all of that. And I'm like, I just, you have to understand what goes in it, And,
Right.
like I said, and I'm like, if they can do it for that price, that's great. I'm happy for you, but I just can't do it for that price, And then
Right.
I had, sellers decide not to go with me because I was too expensive for them.
Yeah.
They called me, a month later, 2 months later. Hey, Igor, our home didn't sell. Would you be interested in listing it? I was like, I would love to list it, but my price is still the same.
Right. Right.
I'm like, and they're like, okay, well, let's do it, right? And then I come in, and we listed for one price, and I said, hey, we'll get you. Whatever they had it listed for before, they couldn't get the price. I got them. When I listed it, did the professional pictures, everything, I got them extra $50,000. Which
That's just one example.
Yeah.
Of probably many.
Yeah, which they had to pay me, yes, extra $8,000 my commission or whatever. But I'm like, you still walked away with extra, $42,000 after selling it, So
Right.
it's like, was it worth it? And I asked them that question: was it worth paying more for? They're like, oh, 100%.
In hindsight,
Yeah.
that works great.
Right, yeah.
But what you don't know, you don't know. And a lot of folks will elect for the 1% option and maybe have a successful sale with that complacent broker or the broker that's an assembly line broker. And maybe they're just, one piece of the assembly line, and whatever offer comes, they're just like, take it.
Well,
Right? You don't know.
I think, Derek, that success used to come during COVID, where I have 30 offers on my home and
Right.
$100,000 over list price, where 2% interest rates and everybody's buying, and it doesn't matter how great you are,
Right,
It
right.
just doesn't work in this industry in 2024.
No.
You're gonna actually have to put the work to get your home sold if you want the top dollar.
Right.
You're gonna have to spend all the additional money and make it to the point. I tell people curb appeal is really important, and it has to be ready day one.
Right.
You want to get your home ready for day one. Where people go out there and they see it and they're like, wow, it's amazing. Instead of, hey, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that. Because I come out multiple times before putting a listing on the market, and I'm like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's add this. And because I want them to get the top dollar. It's
Right.
not like I don't.
And that's what people are looking for,
Yeah.
right? They're not looking for you to say, oh, it looks okay. I think it'll be all right.
Yeah. Well,
Let's just put it on and see what happens.
yeah. So.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like you pay more, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, just really been a pleasure. I'm glad you're a busy guy. I think you had a couple of appointments before you even came this morning.
Oh yeah.
You're on your listing appointment and made breakfast for your family and all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
And your
Yeah,
day
thanks
is
so
probably-
much for taking the time to
Thanks
do
for taking
this.
the
It's
time.
great.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much. And
And
I
we'll
look.
see you around, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's been a
We'll
pleasure.
definitely do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're
All right.
listening to this and watching this, hope you got a lot out of today's episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
High five on that one. High
Appreciate it.
Did a great job.
five. Nice job.
Thank you.